Hello everyone, and welcome to my Gunlance counter build for fighting Arch-Tempered Nergigante. As usual, the build will be shown at the end. The beginning will be a solo run against Arch-Tempered Nergigante, so that I can show off the build and kind of explain my reasoning and give you some tips. We're opening up with our buffs, of course. We have our Rocksteady Mantle ready. We're going to grab a Crystal Burst, because Crystal Burst, of course, is OP in this fight. Here we are. We're going to put that Rocksteady Mantle on because I like Rocksteady Mantles as an opening mantle because what you can do is you can attack the monster. When the monster sees you, it typically roars, and the Rocksteady Mantle lets you ignore that roar. It's very efficient. You can also use the Evade Mantle if you're good enough at evading. Alright, and now we're just going to poke shell, poke shell, poke shell. What I'm using here is a wide shelling Gunlance, wide level 4 shelling Gunlance. And in this case, it's actually the Kiar Buster Bomber. If you don't have Kiar Buster Bomber, I know it's rarity 8. If you don't have it, use the Terreth Buster Bomber, that's rarity 7. Probably go for double health regen augmentation. That would give you actually a little bit more defense. And if you don't have that, you should at least have the King Bomber. That's the rarity 6 version of this Gunlance. You get 3 augmentation slots. You can actually go triple health regen augmentation. And in that case, if you go with the rarity 6 one, you don't really have to worry as much about meleeing because your melee is going to be kind of bad. Kiar Buster Bomber's melee is kind of good, so that's why you're going to see me using a lot of melee attacks in this fight. I just used Wormstake on his horns, and the reason for that is because those horns, since I have blue sharpness, it'll actually deflect my melee attacks off, so I'm just kind of using whatever attacks I have at my disposal rather than the melee, because I don't want to poke and then have that my blade get deflected and I'll be stuck in that animation. I hate that deflected animation, don't you? Now we could have thrown Mind's Eye onto our build, but you're using a Gunlance, and Gunlance is so capable of just using an explosive attack, and of course explosive attacks totally ignore hardened body parts on the monster, so why would we bother with the Mind's Eye Jewel? It's just kind of a waste. Why don't I go ahead and start talking about why I think this build is so good. There's another Wormstake. Why do I think this build is so good? I think this is one of the better matchup builds for fighting Arch-Tempered Nergigante. In other words, I think it's easier than some of the other weapons. So we can make a counter build for every weapon, but a few weapons have really good matchups for this fight. One of those matchups was definitely the Hunting Horn, and we already made a video on that. Why was that? It was because you could use the Blaze Horn, and the Blaze Horn had the gut skill built in. It's a Lunastra weapon. Another video we did was for the Longsword. The reason the Longsword was so good is because the Foresight Slash is so good at being able to handle Arch-Tempered Nergigante's fast attacks. So what's special about the Gunlance? The Gunlance is able to afford building 3 parts of the Basilgeuse set. Basilgeuse's chest is giving you 2 levels of guard, and the head and the waist are giving you, earplugs, which is not really necessary. It's just okay. It's not a useless skill, but what's important here is that Gunlances themselves don't really require too much skills for building up damage, and that's because with the Gunlance, all you really need 2 skills. Capacity Boost, that's 1 medium decoration slot, very cheap. And then Artillery, that's 3 small decoration slots, also fairly cheap. And then you're done with your shells, will do their maximum damage, and anything else you fit on the build is just kind of extra, right? You can bring up your melee damage. If you're doing a speed run, of course, speedrunners, what they do, they maximize their melee damage to get every bit of damage out that they can. But for a regular build, maybe you could call it a quality build, you don't necessarily have to max out your melee damage because your shelling damage is already so good. So that's how we're able to build 3 pieces of the Basilgeuse armor set here, is because Basilgeuse armor set is not optimal for melee damage, but is giving us the Guts skill. We're getting the set bonus skill Guts, just like the Blazehorn counter build that I just talked about. We're getting Guts. Why is Guts so good against Arch-Tempered Nergigante? I'm going to assume you've never heard of Guts, so I'm going to explain it real fast for you. Guts is a skill where if Nergigante does a ton of damage in one move, and it would have killed you, instead you live with 1 HP and the Gut skill breaks. That's what it does. It's really good against Arch-Tempered Nergigante because he happens to do a lot of damage per hit, right? It works really effectively on him. There's another skill that is basically a clone of the Gut skill, and is a food skill that you eat for at the canteen. It's called Moxie. What's interesting is that Guts and Moxie actually stack. So you can go to the canteen and eat for Moxie, and you can have Guts on your build. What ends up happening is, even after Arch-Tempered Nergigante has broken your Guts, he has to then break your Moxie, and it just ends up being really, really effective at staying alive versus him. It almost feels like having 3 lives. So this is why I think the Gunlance is having such a good time against Arch-Tempered Nergigante. It all comes down to the fact that you can very efficiently build for shells, and then you can build Basilgeuse armor set, 3 pieces of it, pick up that Guts set bonus skill, and then eat for Moxie at the canteen. I hope I explained that really well. So what you see going on in the fight, we're in stage 2. What we're not doing is we're not knocking Arch-Tempered Nergigante over. We don't want to topple him. There is a way to do that. Basically, you break the white spikes and that'll give you a knockdown. We're avoiding that because we want him to get into a turf war with Kushala Daora. And what happens is, if you knock him down too early, if you knock him down while Kushala Daora is showing up, you don't get that turf war. You actually lose it. And then, sadly, Kushala Daora actually sticks around in the fight for the rest of the fight. And it makes the fight really bad. So we want that turf war. There it is. And now that it's over, we can knock down Arch-Tempered Nergigante as often as we want. Alright, we've done a little bit of mount damage. We did that at the beginning of stage 2. I don't know if you're watching that. Basically, we were getting him ready for a mount for after Kushala Daora leaves. Alright, that's real dangerous. You'll notice my health is below the threshold for guts. Alright, we had our max potion and now we're good. That's why we put max potion on our radial menu, by the way, so that we can access the max potion very quickly. If you don't know about radial menus and you don't know about item loadouts, be sure to go watch my item loadout guide. I'll leave a link to it in the comment section. Alright, there's his dive bomb. You'll notice it did a little bit of chip damage to me. You gotta be careful, because if you happen to only have a little bit of health left, you don't want to guard his attacks. Bam, he just did so much damage to me, and you can see that Guts just activated. So he broke the Gut skill. The Gut skill's gone, and I lived with 1 HP. You can see my health bar is completely empty. See that? But I lived. That's why Guts and Moxie are doing so well against Arch-Tempered Nergigante. Now, in my case, for this run, I didn't actually eat for Moxie. You should, though, okay? So I'm saying when you go to the canteen, eat for Moxie. And if you've never seen how to eat for Moxie, I also happen to have a canteen guide, so you can look that up if you want. Alright, so my Guts is broken. You know what makes Guts better than Moxie, in fact? So the way Moxie works, it's a total clone of Guts, except in one way. So with Moxie, once it's broken, it's gone. You would have to eat another canteen meal to get Moxie back. Which you can, by the way. After 10 minutes, you can eat for Moxie again, because you're allowed to eat at the canteen more than once in the middle of a fight. With the Gut skill, it's different. If he actually kills you, the Gut skill resets. So see how Guts has been broken? If he were to kill me at this point, when I come back, Guts is active again. So Guts is just so good against him, because even if he does get a kill on you, it's like you get that Gut skill right back. It's like having, I don't want to use the term feline insurance because that's an actual term in the game, but it's kind of like having some insurance, right? It's like, don't worry, buddy, if he does too much damage to you, we're going to keep you alive for at least 1 hit. It's kind of like that. Okay, we're in stage 3. I've had my cool drink, and now we want to get that mount on him. Remember I told you we set up the mount? Well, there it is. So we did 2 mount damage to him earlier, and then we got our 3rd mount attack and it jumped right on him. And now we're going to use our Crystal Burst to end it early. So you got to get him to flinch twice, and at the end of 2 flinches, he's going to be ready for that finishing attack. We like to get off of Nergigante sooner so that we can get to attacking his white spikes. It's kind of an advantage. Unfortunately, now I need a reload. Alright, we'll use that to get the reload. Alright, now it's time to do damage to his head. And I don't want to break his spikes until he's standing up. Oh, but unfortunately, he goes right into his dive bomb. Why did he do that? I guess sometimes he just gets angry and decides it's dive bomb time. It's sad because he didn't have any other spikes on his body. It was just his head. And those white spikes were just about to break, too. Alright, so now we're in stage 3. Both mantles are down. What does this mean? It means it's time to play it cool. We're just going to poke wherever we can. We're not going to worry about getting knockdowns. We're not going to be overly aggressive, because this guy will kill you very fast in stage 3 and stage 4. In fact, you can see, look at all the pierce damage he did to me. That's a ton of pierce damage. Alright, he's focused on my Palco. Time to get that max potion. I didn't panic. I waited for him to change aggro, and then I went for the heal. So we've been doing great damage. This is the funny part. We're wearing, you can see that we're wearing Basilgu's armor, but we're still doing terrific damage to him because we're very consistent with those shells. And we're already basically in stage 4. Stage 4 is when Arch-Tempered Nergigante is trying to sneak off to his nest. And you can let him do that, by the way. When you suspect he's right about to die, you can allow Arch-Tempered Nergigante to finish going to his nest, and then you get 1 wake-up attack on him with Mega Barrel Bombs. So don't forget that. You don't have to keep him in the fight. If you want to keep him in the fight, you use that Crystal Burst. Right, and like I said, now we're not too worried about breaking his white spikes. We're worried, oh man, look at that, I'm about to die. We're worried primarily with staying alive and just hitting him anywhere that we can. Because he is just really wild in stages 3 and 4. Alright, we're going to dive. Dive evade. Nice. The dive bomb missed us. I got my Rocksteady Mantle on. We have fresh Crystal Burst. There's actually 2 locations in this stage of the map for Crystal Burst. So there's plenty of Crystal Burst to go around. And my cat, unfortunately, my cat doesn't put him to sleep. I really hoped that my cat would put him to sleep in stage 3 and 4 because I traded out. In stage 1, I intentionally didn't give my Palico the Bond Ball because your Palico will always get an easy sleep in stage 1 if you do, and I kind of wanted to get him to sleep in stages 3. But unfortunately, my Palico just doesn't put him to sleep in stage 3. Sometimes it's RNG. I suspect part of the reason is because Nergigante moves around so fast and so aggressively that your cat really doesn't get a chance to attack. We just dropped into green sharpness. That's okay because at green sharpness, you're still doing the same shelling damage. It's not until you fall into brown sharpness that you lose shelling damage. Alright, you can see the Rocksteady Mantle is allowing me to pretty much ignore his attacks. I mean, I'm still taking damage, but I'm also healing when I attack him. And that Dragon Pod dropped. Is that the second one or the first one? I can't remember. That might be the second one. Let's go ahead and refresh with the Max Potion. Oh, he got me with that move. So look at that. In one move, he almost killed me. And I was wearing the Rocksteady Mantle. This gives you an idea of how much damage Arch-Tempered Nergigante is doing. And again, this is why the Gut skill and the Moxie Food skill are doing so well against him. Because he's very likely going to break those thresholds. We just wasted our Wyvern Fire. Unfortunately, he was aggroed to our cat. We should have waited and then used it. He's really trying to sneak off to his nest, but we don't want him to do that. I don't feel like it, because I don't feel like chasing him around. You know, it takes time to chase him around, and I'm trying to get a video made. You could take your time. You could take your time and chase him back to his nest and get that wake up. So don't forget that. Oh, we got our Temporal Mantle on, and really when your Temporal Mantle comes out, you need to be going nuts with your shelling. Now you really can focus on the white spikes, because there's no way for him to injure you really. Well, not seriously injure you. So now you really should be getting out as much damage as you can on those white spikes. You have to be careful with those pause wipes. You can see that they pierce through the Temporal Mantle. Oh, we got the knockdown. So you can see that I broke the white spikes on his left arm, and this gave us the knockdown. And if we're careful with the head, we can get a knockdown here too. Check that out. We got it. We got the head knocked down because we broke those white spikes just as he stood up. You can see we have brown sharpness now, but I don't care. I'm going to keep damaging him as fast as I can. Alright, so he's back up, and I think it's a good idea to try and get the sharpen. There we go. That's our second Dragon Pod, so he's very close to dying now. That's how that works. We're going for the sharpen at this point. We want to get back to the blue sharpness. When you're down in the brown sharpness, not only are you doing bad melee damage, you're also doing bad shelling damage now. You're losing a lot. Alright, he dive bombed us, no big deal. Temporal Mantle is dodging for us, so it's a very safe time to sharpen our Gunlance. Oof. Alright, so we gotta be careful now, because he can actually kill us with another... Okay, we're good. Max Potion all the way. And we just stopped his retreat once again with Crystal Burst. Big fan of that Crystal Burst. Here's the Wyvern Fire. Remember, when we're getting that Wyvern Fire out, we're doing a whopping 450 damage in one move. So it's actually a nice little burst of damage. It's pretty safe to use if you use it as a punish. We're in trouble now. We stayed down. We didn't want to stand up right away. Oh, that was dangerous. He could have gone for me, but he went for my Palico. That just shows you how dangerous he is. But think about this. We haven't had any deaths in the fight, and if he had killed me, there we go, the fight's over. If he had killed me, I would have come back with guts. So you can see for the solo fight, it went very well. He had one move that should have killed me, but because I'm wearing 3 parts of the Bazooka's armor set, I totally lived through the attack. Excellent. This is the reason why I think that the Gunlance is having a good matchup against him. You could also say that when his spikes are turning black, the shells on the Gunlance are ignoring the fact that they're ignoring the bad hit zone values of the black spikes. So that's another advantage. Alright, the last thing we have to do is talk about the build. Let's go ahead and do that. Okay, so for the build, once again, is Kiara Buster Bomber. If you don't have that, use the Terrath Buster Bomber. If you don't have that, use the Gold Buster Bomber, right? That's Rarity 8, Rarity 7, Rarity 6. With the Rarity 6 version, go for a triple health regen, augmentations, and then don't really worry as much about melee attacks, in my opinion. Some other notable things about the build is we do have Health Boost 3, we do have Artillery 3. I conveniently put Artillery 3 in as the charm on this build, so there should be no reason why you can't put it onto your build unless maybe you can't afford the artillery charm. Just try to get as much artillery as you can. It really affects your damage output. We do have 3 levels of weakness exploit and 1 level of crit boost. If you're using the rarity 6 Buster Bomber, you're not going to need the weakness exploit and you're not going to need the crit boost. You can replace those with more defensive skills if you prefer. Probably if you're taking triple health regen augmentation, you can pair that with the medicine decorations. That's the health regen up or something like that. And what it does is when you're healing yourself with your health regen augmentation, it actually gives you back even more health. So you become extremely hard to kill, extremely tanky. All right. And then other than that, we have the capacity boost decoration. If you don't have it, it's not the end of the world. If you do have it, it is a boost to your damage output. The last thing I'll point out is that we could have taken earplugs 5. Once again, in my case, I prefer to have 1 level of crit boost rather than 5 levels of earplugs because I don't really consider Nergigante's roar to be that dangerous. If you prefer to have 5 levels of earplugs, go for it, but I wanted the extra melee damage. Alright, and the last thing I'll do is remind you, the reason this build is so strong is because we're stacking the gut skill with the feline moxie food skill, so be sure to eat feline moxie. That's everything I had to say. I want to thank you all for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.